The Gaza war is finally over. For the first time in 2 years, there is peace. The ceasefire is holding. There are cheers and tears, also questions about what comes next. Will Hamas lay down arms? Will Netanyahu refrain from another attack? Who will rebuild Gaza and how? Tonight, we break down the deal, the stakes and the road ahead. We'll also look at the politics of the peace summit in Egypt. 20 world leaders, 33 handshakes, lots of viral moments, and why the Indian Prime Minister gave it a miss. Also on the show, how the trade war between the US and China is intensifying, why the LG IPO is being called a blockbuster, why the Pentagon wants to gag the media, what led to the coup in Madagascar, and why there was a French military helicopter in the picture. Why silver has touched record highs, especially in India, and can one route, one fare make flying more accessible for every Indian? Plus, what's the Nobel-winning concept of creative destruction? All this and more coming up. First, as always, the headlines. The French Prime Minister says the controversial pension reform will be suspended until the 2027 presidential election. The reform called for raising the retirement age from 62 to 64. The Prime Minister already faces 2 no-confidence motions that are likely to be voted on in Parliament on Thursday. Thousands of protesters flood the streets of Belgium's capital, Brussels. They're angry over the government austerity plans. The protests are part of a national strike which has grounded flights and disrupted public transport. Belgium is grappling with a massive budget deficit that violates the rules of the European Union. The International Monetary Fund raises India's growth forecast for 2025-26 to 6.6%, but it has cut the projection to 6.2% for 2026-27. This comes days after the World Bank announced a similar cut. The IMF also predicts that global growth would edge upwards to 3.2% this year. The outlook for next year remains unchanged at 3.1%. Gunmen in northwest Pakistan kill a police officer guarding polio vaccinators. The attack comes amid a nationwide campaign to counter rising cases. Other than Afghanistan, Pakistan is the only country where polio remains an endemic. But in the last decade, militants have killed hundreds of police officers and health workers. Cameroon's opposition candidate claims victory against incumbent President Paul Biya, but the official results for the weekend vote are not expected for 2 weeks. President Biya has been in power for 43 years. The 92-year-old is the world's oldest serving head of state. After 734 days of war, the guns have fallen silent in Gaza. No more fireballs in the night sky, no more missile strikes, no more gunfights. Gazans and Israelis finally have a peace deal. The ceasefire is holding. All the hostages are back home in Israel and hundreds of Palestinians have been freed from Israeli jails. It seemed impossible until recently. It has finally been achieved. And that's a good start. But what if I told you that this was the easy part? Ending the fighting and returning the hostages, this was the easy part. What comes next is uncharted territory. What comes after the peace deal? How will they maintain peace? How will they rebuild Gaza? What will it mean for the key stakeholders in this conflict? For Hamas, for Netanyahu, for the people of Gaza? What's in store for them? That's what we'll discuss tonight. But first, let's look at the situation on the ground. Let's look at what is happening in Gaza. People are returning to urban centers. Thousands are walking up the coastal road to Gaza City. And what will they find there? Most likely destroyed houses and buildings. Aid has also started coming in. On Sunday, some 173 trucks entered Gaza with food and medicines. What they need is 600 trucks every day. But again, it's a start. Over in Israel, families are still waiting eagerly. The 20 living hostages have been freed. But Hamas also held the remains of 28 deceased hostages, 28. 4 bodies were returned yesterday. The remaining 24 are yet to be handed over. This whole process is being handled by the Red Cross, and they say it will take time. It is tough to find the bodies in the rubble of Gaza. Meanwhile, Israeli troops have withdrawn. Let me pull up the map for you. Before the ceasefire, Israel controlled 80% of the Gaza Strip. That's the blue line you see inside the strip. Last week, they began pulling back from the blue line to the yellow line. This leaves around 55% of Gaza in Israeli control. The next withdrawal will come in the next stage of talks, which brings us to the question we set out to address. What happens next? Donald Trump's plan has 20 points. The first step is to create a new governing body. This will be composed of Palestinian technocrats, and guiding them will be a board of peace. A board that includes Donald Trump himself, also former British Prime Minister Tony Blair. They will oversee the rebuilding of Gaza, they will negotiate the Israeli withdrawal, and they will introduce reforms. When the time is right, they will hand over Gaza to the PA. That's the Palestinian Authority, the group that already governs the West Bank. Then comes the question of security. Who will police this war-torn strip? Trump's plan calls for an international stabilization force, sort of like a peacekeeping group. This will include soldiers from Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey. They will police Gaza, these soldiers. After this, Trump's peace plan scales up the ambitions. The plan talks about investments, special economic zones, and tariffs. As of today, we are very far away from all of that, so let's focus on the short term. What happens to Hamas? What will be their role? The plan requires Hamas to surrender, to give up their weapons, and to not rule Gaza again. It says Hamas should give up their political ambitions. That's what the peace plan says. But will they do it? Just look at what happened yesterday. Hamas fighters stood guard as the hostages were freed. They proudly flaunted their guns and gear. And the same thing happened today. Hamas fighters have fanned out across the Gaza Strip. They are reasserting their lost power. So when the time comes, will they surrender their weapons? Will they give up their political ambitions? And if they don't, what will Israel do? Prime Minister Netanyahu had vowed to destroy Hamas. If they retain their weapons, he may return to the battlefield. But if Hamas surrenders, they do have options. Trump's plan grants them amnesty. Their leaders can also leave Gaza if they wish to. On the other side, Netanyahu also faces a difficult test. Israel is slated to hold elections in October next year. If the peace holds, maybe sooner. Elections may come sooner. And the results may not favor Netanyahu. The Israeli parliament, or the Knesset, has 120 seats. If polls are held today, the opposition would win 59 seats, Netanyahu's bloc would win 51 seats, and the Arab parties could get 10. You need 61 seats to form the government. Chances are Netanyahu will be ousted if elections are held today. And that's just the start of his problems. Netanyahu is also facing corruption allegations in court. Until now, he used the war and his office to fight them. Without those, he faces an uncertain future. And Donald Trump hinted at that yesterday. He asked the Israeli president to pardon Netanyahu.
Hey, I have an idea. Mr. President, why don't you give him a pardon? Give him a pardon. Come on.
And what about the people of Gaza? They will be looking forward to living without fear. But as they say, peace is not the absence of war. It must also bring prosperity, stability, and that requires rebuilding Gaza. Around 83% of all buildings in Gaza have been destroyed, 83%. The war has left 55 million tons of rubble. That is 13 times the Pyramid of Giza. All that rubble will have to be removed first. Urban centers will have to be swept for bombs, and finally it must be rebuilt. And all of it will cost around $70 billion, $70 billion. The United Nations says it is confident that Arab and Western countries will step up. They may be able to rebuild concrete structures. But don't forget the emotional and human toll. Around 68,000 Gazans have been killed in the last 2 years. Hundreds of families have been torn apart. For them, a ceasefire will not bring normalcy. They will need time and care. And looming large over all these concerns is that of statehood, the question of creating a Palestinian state. This is presented as the end game in Trump's plan. But Trump himself is unsure about it. Listen to his comments yesterday.
I'm talking about rebuilding Gaza. I'm not talking about single state or double state or two state. We're talking about the rebuilding of Gaza.
What's the road ahead for governing
Well,
Gaza?
we'll have to see. I mean, a lot of people like the one-state solution. Some people like the two-state solution. So we'll have to see. I haven't commented on that.
Netanyahu feels the same. He has promised to fight the two-state solution. He says it would be like rewarding Hamas. Of course, the Arab countries feel differently. They know they have momentum on their side. They're using that momentum to push for a Palestinian state.
I reaffirm our support and aspiration for the implementation of this plan, creating the political horizon necessary for the implementation of the two-state solution, as it is the only way to achieve the legitimate aspirations of the Palestinian and Israeli people to end the conflict and live in peace.
So which way will things go? That could very well depend on Trump. Because these talks could break down at any stage, and if they do, Israel will want to return to the battlefield. Only Trump can stop that from happening. Same on the other side. Trump has considerable clout with the allies of Hamas. I'm talking about the likes of Qatar, Turkey and Egypt. If they can pile on the pressure, Hamas may relent. These are conversations that will likely happen in the shadows, away from cameras, clicks and pageantry. Very different from what we saw yesterday. "33 handshakes. If diplomacy were a contact sport, Donald Trump would be its undisputed showman. No one shakes hands quite like the US president. Every grip, every pull, every smirk, it is theater. It makes you wonder, is he negotiating peace or trying to win a duel? And at Sharm el-Sheikh, things were no different. Sharm el-Sheikh is a small Red Sea resort town in Egypt. Yesterday, it turned into the capital of global diplomacy. More than 20 world leaders gathered for the Gaza Peace Summit. Donald Trump co-chaired it with Egypt. This was a summit to end the Gaza war, at least that was the goal, but it looked more like a global photo op. The massive backdrop read, "Peace in the Middle East" in gold letters. The stage was framed by flags and cameras. Donald Trump declared victory, the crowd applauded, and the leaders smiled.
United Kingdom. Where's United Kingdom? Where's our friend? Where? Come here. Is everything going good?
Very good.
It's very nice that you're here. These people all came in like 20-minute notice, and I think it's fantastic. And we have so many others, and just so many others.
Before any talks began, came the main act, handshake diplomacy. Trump stood before the giant peace sign, waiting like a showman on stage. One by one, world leaders walked in, they shook hands, Trump made a comment or two, and then on to the next. But a few moments went viral, like this one. The Trump-Macron handshake duel, part 3. The French President Macron approached, all smiles. They clasped hands and did not let go. The handshake continued for 27 seconds. Trump pulled Macron closer. Macron tightened the grip. Both smiled for the cameras, even as their knuckles turned white. Then there was Mark Carney. He's the Prime Minister of Canada. In the past, Trump has called him governor. But yesterday, he had a new title for Mark Carney. Trump called him the President of Canada.
You have Canada. It's so great to have, in fact, the president called and he wanted to know if it's worthwhile. He knew exactly what it was. He knew the importance. Where's Canada, by the way? Where are you? Where are you? Is he going back?
No, I'll go back. I'm glad you upgraded me to president.
Oh, did I say?
Great stuff. It's good. I started.
He said he'd take that.
Then there was Giorgia Meloni, the Prime Minister of Italy. She was the only woman on stage, and that made her the unintentional protagonist. First, there was an exchange with the Turkish president. He said she looks great, but he asked her to stop smoking.
Everything okay?
Her şey yolunda.
İyi gördüm.
Oh, you look great.
Oh, thank you.
Ama
Sigarayı bıraktırmam lazım.
but I have to make you stop smoking somehow.
I know. I don't want to kill somebody. Yeah.
And then it was Trump's turn. He could have said a lot of things about Meloni. After all, she is Italy's first prime minister, first female prime minister, and they have ideological similarities. But this is what Trump chose to call her: a beautiful young woman.
Italy, we have a woman, a young woman who's, I'm not allowed to say it because usually it's the end of your political career if you say it. She's a beautiful young woman. Now, if you use the word beautiful in the United States about a woman, that's the end of your political career, but I'll take my chances. Where is she? There she is. You don't mind being called beautiful, right? Because you are. Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it. She wanted to be here, and she's incredible, and they really respect her in Italy. She's a very successful politician.
The room laughed, but the internet did not, and rightfully so. Because when you're the only female leader in a room full of men, the bar is higher for you, and the jokes, they just land lower. But it wasn't as bad as the one with the UAE official. Trump pointed at him and said this. By the time the family photograph was taken, Trump had shaken hands with 33 world leaders. Some soft and deferential, others firm and almost comically competitive. Every interaction was a glimpse into Trump's worldview, transactional and theatrical. But for once, it was not Trump who was asking for favors. Indonesia's president had a special request for him.
In the region. Can you meet Eric? We look for better place. Yeah, all of them.
Now you may wonder, what about the peace summit? Well, that happened too. Trump arrived in Sharm el-Sheikh from Israel. Israel and Hamas had already exchanged hostages and prisoners. 20 Israeli captives were freed by Hamas. Nearly 2,000 Palestinians were released by Israel. There were celebrations in West Asia. It was undeniably a major moment. At Sharm el-Sheikh, the US president signed the Trump Declaration. It promises a ceasefire, the demilitarization of Gaza, amnesty for Hamas members willing to lay down arms, and a transitional Palestinian committee.
We're going to be signing a document that's going to spell out a lot of rules and regulations and lots of other things, and it's very comprehensive, but we've already signed documents in the Middle East and having to do with Israel and Hamas and just about everything else, and it's really working out incredibly well.
But there was a catch. Neither Israel nor Hamas attended the summit, and the declaration was big on adjectives but short of details. There's no mention of Palestinian statehood, no clear mechanism for reconstruction, no plan for what happens when the ceasefire turns fragile. So it seems like a phase one of a very long process. And yet the big questions remain unanswered, like who would govern Gaza? Would Hamas disarm? Would Israel withdraw? There are no answers to these questions.
Thank you very much, everybody. This is a tremendous day for the world. It's a tremendous day for the Middle East. And you can see that this is probably the greatest assemblage of countries in terms of wealth and power maybe ever assembled. And it's just an honor to be a part of it.
So 33 handshakes later, uncertainty still looms. But at least the spotlight is on Trump. Maybe that's the real lesson of his handshake diplomacy, where sometimes the grip matters more than the agreement. And at Sharm el-Sheikh, the world got both, a peace summit and a show. So that's what happened in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. More than a dozen world leaders were there in attendance. Even the FIFA chief was there for some weird reason. But missing from the scene was India's Prime Minister. Prime Minister Modi did get an invite. Reports say both Donald Trump and the Egyptian president invited him, but he chose not to attend. Instead, India was represented by Kirti Vardhan Singh. He is the Minister of State for External Affairs, sort of like the junior foreign minister. So naturally, everyone is asking why. Why did Prime Minister Modi skip this summit? After all, India has close ties with Israel and the Arab world. It is also a major power on the world stage. So why did the Indian Prime Minister not attend the peace summit? Well, we can think of three reasons. For starters, the presence of Pakistan. Their Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif was also in Egypt. In fact, he was standing right behind Trump. Had Prime Minister Modi gone, it would have created an awkward situation. And look at what Trump did yesterday. First, he claimed credit for ending the India-Pakistan conflict yet again. And then he said that India and Pakistan would live in peace. After that, he turned around to face Shehbaz Sharif, and the Pakistani Prime Minister gave him a sheepish nod. Take a look.
I think that Pakistan and India are going to live very nicely together. Do you want to say what you said to me the other day? Come, would you like to say what you said the other day? I think it was so nice.
Well, that was hard enough to watch. Now imagine if Prime Minister Modi was actually there. Trump would have pulled the same tactic with him, basically forced him into an uncomfortable public situation, because that's his brand of diplomacy. It's all about catching leaders off guard in public. That could be the first reason. Secondly, look at the style of the summit. It did not look like a multilateral peace gathering. It looked like Donald Trump was holding court, and the guest list reflects that. You had America's European NATO allies, you had America's Arab allies, you also had America's Asian allies. All of them had the same agenda, to curry favor with the US president. We just heard his exchange with the Indonesian leader. It was more about hyping up Trump than peace. And India does not do that. And finally, the third reason, this was a preliminary agreement at best, that too without the two main players present. Israel's Prime Minister was not in Egypt, nor was any leader from Hamas. Maybe that is why the Indian Prime Minister did not attend. Whatever the reason, do not mistake it for disinterest. India has been consistently supporting the peace effort. Prime Minister Modi backed it the moment Trump announced it. Even yesterday, Prime Minister Modi was following the events. Let me quote his statements. We welcome the release of all hostages after 2 years of captivity. Their freedom stands as a tribute to the courage of their families, the unwavering peace efforts of President Trump, and the strong resolve of Prime Minister Netanyahu. Prime Minister Modi also posted the same message in Hebrew. So clearly, he is interested in the same end goal, to bring peace to West Asia. The divergence lies in the process and style. Just consider the war in Ukraine. India has relayed messages between Kiev and Moscow. Prime Minister Modi has nudged Putin to protect Ukrainian children. He told Russia this is not an era for war. The idea was to engage in quiet but powerful diplomacy. But Trump's style is the opposite. It is personal, it is public, it is dramatic. Also, Trump is not exactly popular in India anymore. His tariffs have turned the Indian public against him. As things stand, both sides have resumed trade talks, but there is no clarity on a deal yet. Maybe Prime Minister Modi did not want to meet amid all this uncertainty. Maybe he wants to strike a deal first. Whatever the reason, we can say one thing for sure. The decision to skip it was the right one. India does not need to attend a summit to burnish its peace and leadership credentials.
just a response to something that they did. And really aim it at us. They aimed it at the whole world, the whole world.
China has a Donald Trump problem. The world's second largest economy cannot read the White House. In public, President Trump says a deal with China is still possible. Listen to this first.
I think we're going to be fine with China. Look, I have a great relationship with President Xi. He's a very tough man. He's a very smart man. He's a great leader for their country. He's a great leader. And I have a great relationship with him. I think we'll get it set.
That's what Trump says, but his actions tell a different story. For months, the US and China have been negotiating, but the talks are going nowhere. The trade war is getting harder to untangle and both sides are escalating tensions. As a result, risks for the global economy are rising. And today, a new front has opened up. The US and China have introduced new port fees. These are extra charges on incoming ships. They're imposed as soon as goods arrive on the shore. So American ports will tax Chinese vessels and Chinese ports will do the same to American ships. Plus, these fees are not small. Exporters could face millions in extra costs if they're moving large orders. For many, the price tag may be prohibitive. It could make some businesses unviable, and Beijing is adding to the pressure because it is not stopping at port fees. China's market regulator has launched an anti-monopoly probe. They're targeting US tech giant Qualcomm. Qualcomm is being investigated over a company acquisition. And this is not a one-off move. This probe is part of a wider Chinese strategy. Last week, Beijing announced a series of economic measures. It tightened export rules for rare earths. These are minerals needed to build modern gadgets. China has a monopoly on their supply, and it is holding back rare earth supplies. China also refuses to share technology to process rare earths. And it has cut back on buying soybean from the US. Like I said, it's a series of measures they've introduced. Trump responded to this in typical fashion. He threatened another 100% tariffs on China. In fact, higher tariffs are already kicking in on some imports. Stuff like timber, kitchen cabinets, and upholstered furniture. America imports them in large quantities from China, and these goods now face higher taxes. So the trade war is clearly escalating. It is also spilling over. It has hit different parts of the economy in both countries, the US and China. And in this backdrop, Trump is threatening more tariffs. At the same time, his team says he will meet the Chinese president later this month.
Yes, that's the signal that the president has given. He did say in his in his truth post that he could always pull it forward, but the idea is to give them time to meet and talk this out.
Trump and Xi are expected to meet on the 29th of October in South Korea. They will be attending the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum. So before the meeting, Trump could be resorting to his usual tactics, raising the stakes and building leverage to force a better deal. That is how he operates. But China is proving to be a tough opponent. Despite the tariffs, China's export engine is holding firm. In September, Chinese exports rose by over 8%. That is the fastest growth in 6 months. Total exports crossed $320 billion. $320 billion. How did China pull it off? They're losing ground in the US. China's shipments to the US are shrinking. They dropped by 27% last month. But Beijing managed to adapt. It managed to offset the losses from the US market and increased exports to other regions, especially to Europe. Now look at China's total exports to non-US markets. They've grown by almost 15% last month. That's the fastest pace since March 2023. At the same time, China is weaponizing its supplies. The tariffs and restrictions designed to hurt the US are also being applied to Europe. I'll give you an example. The curbs on rare earth supplies. China introduced them for the US, but it imposed them on European companies as well. And this has raised an alarm in Brussels. The Danish foreign minister is calling for action. He said, and I quote, We should have a tough response. Denmark currently holds the EU's rotating presidency. European leaders are concerned. They fear the disruption from the US-China trade war could spread. It could impact the wider global economy. Europe is already caught in the crossfire, and if Trump and Xi fail to break the deadlock, the global economy is in for greater disruption.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
As the countdown to Bihar's first phase of polling intensifies, the NDA has already locked in its seat-sharing formula, with BJP and JDU bagging 101 seats each and Chirag Paswan settling for 29. But on the other side of the aisle, the Mahagathbandhan is still in deep negotiations. Tejashwi Yadav, after attending a court hearing in Delhi, has rushed back to Patna. He told reporters that seat-sharing announcement will come in the next 2 to 3 days. Sources say Congress is holding out for more seats, having rejected RJD's offer of 55. With just 72 hours left before nominations close, pressure is mounting on the alliance to present a united front. In the meanwhile, Tej Pratap Yadav has announced that he will contest the upcoming polls from Mahua constituency in Vaishali district. And in an internal Congress meeting held yesterday, state leaders also expressed dissatisfaction with being limited to 55 seats in Bihar Mahagathbandhan. According to Congress sources, seat-sharing talks within Mahagathbandhan have hit a roadblock. The Congress adamant on contesting on 60 at least. RJD, however, wants to reduce Congress's share to accommodate smaller alliance partners. On the other hand, NDA seat-sharing deal, remember, has been done, and we've heard all of that all of yesterday, how leaders have been discussing allocation of individual seats now. A lot of reactions coming in on this top focus story from Bihar. First up, let's play them out.
महागठबंधन में सिर फुटअव्वल चल रहा है और महागठबंधन जो है एक दूसरे का इलाज दिल्ली में जाकर के करवा रहे हैं। मुकेश सहनी जी ने कहा कि अभी इलाज शुरू हुआ है महागठबंधन का, सभी डॉक्टर दिल्ली में मौजूद हैं उनके, और वो लोग अपना एक दूसरे से इलाज करवा रहे हैं।
एक चीज़ है कि बिहारियों के सम्मान का, उत्थान का संकल्प ये लोकतंत्र का महापर्व में बिहार की जनता, माँ भारती की जनता पूरी तरह से निभाएगी। अब बिहारी गाली नहीं बनेगा, बिहारी स्वाभिमान और समृद्धि का प्रतीक बनेगा।
लिस्ट सीट शेयरिंग के फाइनलाइजेशन के बाद, गठबंधन के बाद लिस्ट भी आई। हमारा प्रयास ये है कि बिहार की जनता को एक अच्छी सरकार बना के दें, तो गठबंधन का भी नुकसान नहीं होना चाहिए और बिहार का फायदा होना चाहिए, हमारा प्रयास है।
बिहार की जनता को एक बार पुनः स्वच्छ प्रशासन के लिए नीतीश कुमार को वोट देना चाहिए। जेडीयू और भाजपा जुड़वा भाई की तरह से, उनमें पदों को लेकर के किसी प्रकार का कोई विवाद नहीं है। हमारे जन कल्याण के साझे कार्यक्रम।
Sharon Elizabeth joins us live with more details. Sharon, there's a lot of confusion, it seems, in the Mahagathbandhan, and the finalization of seat-sharing talks most certainly has been pushed by another day or two, is what we're learning. But tell us a little bit about what the strategy or at the moment seems to be that of the Congress party, especially because they're looking at gaining more seats as opposed to RJD's opinion and point of view right now.
Well, Crispin, at the moment, the strategy, of course, is to seal the deal as far as the seat sharing is concerned, because the time is of essence here. Time is running out. Nomination dates are nearby. And even now, the seat sharing has not been done. When we talk about the NDA camp, the seat sharing, the seats have been divided among their alliances and BJP and the JDU. But in Mahagathbandhan, there is still negotiation that is going on. And that has shown that how, ill-prepared the Congress party and the Mahagathbandhan at this point is, and they need to, of course, seal the deal as fast as possible. Now, overall, when we talk about Congress Party, the Congress Party last time has in fact contested from 70 seats. And this time they are looking at about 60 seats because the RJD has been saying last time they were not able to do much with the seats that they had got. Out of the 70 seats, they were only able to get about 90 to 20 seats. And it was a very bad performance on the part of the Congress Party. On the other hand, the other alliance member, CPIML, their scorecard was actually beyond expectation. They, in fact, contested on 19 seats and they won 12 seats. So this time, they're asking for more seats. And Congress, on the other hand, is very adamant that they will contest on 60 seats. So right now, of course, there are negotiations that is going on. But one of the interesting things to note here is that Tejasvi Yadav was very much present in the national capital. But even then, Rahul Gandhi or a meeting with Kharge was not scheduled because the negotiations are underway and Rahul Gandhi believes that the state leaders know better and the negotiation should happen between them. And once the negotiation is final, then Rahul Gandhi and Mallikarjun Kharge will be meeting Tejasvi Yadav. So Congress is confident that probably by today or by latest tomorrow, they will be able to seal the deal. But of course, things are not really working out as being planned by Mahagathbandhan at this point.
Okay, Sharon, how much of that has changed ever since the Rouse Avenue court made all those important observations, framed charges against the Lalu family? Has that emboldened the Congress now to look at those additional 5 seats that it's been eyeing? Because the RJD, as per sources we're learning, is looking at not giving more than 55 seats to the Congress.
See, Christine, the thing is that Congress also knows that it is going to be RJD that is going to, of course, bring in more seats. It is the bigger alliance member as far as Mahagathbandhan is concerned. Given the Lalu case or not, even if the Congress party is going to raise the Lalu Prasad Yadav issue, every time the RJD says that last time Congress party, in fact, went on to contest in 70 seats and they really managed only about 19 to 20. The scorecard was really bad. That is something that is being pointed out time and again by the RJD, that they need to give more seats to other alliances.
Now let's talk about the Indian stock market. Something big is happening here. Money is flowing in at record levels and companies are rushing to be part of it. Big names, household brands and global giants, they all want a slice of India's financial energy. And they're doing it through something called the IPO. That's Initial Public Offering, IPO. It is when a company sells its shares to the public for the first time, the initial offering. Until that moment, the company is private. After it goes public, after it sells its shares, anyone, even small investors, can own a part of the company. The part that these investors own is called a share. If you buy a share, you own a small part of that company. This is how companies raise money to expand, and this is how investors become part of a company's future. Today, India is embracing this model like never before, and the numbers prove it. In just 9 months of this year, in the first 9 months of the year 2025, 79 companies have gone public in India, meaning 79 companies have launched an IPO this year. Together, they have raised $11.5 billion. And by the end of this year, this number could cross $20 billion. And October is shaping up to be the biggest month of all. IPOs worth more than $5 billion are hitting the market this month alone. In October, $5 billion. And 2 names have grabbed everyone's attention, Tata Capital and LG Electronics India. Tata Capital raised $1.7 billion. It is the largest IPO in India this year. And LG has emerged as a star of the show. It's India's second biggest appliance maker. Its public debut proved just how much investors believe in its future. The LG IPO was worth $1.3 billion and the demand was nothing short of extraordinary. Investors placed bids worth a staggering $50 billion. And when trading began today, LG stock took off. It surged by more than 50% on the first day. The company's market value hit over $13 billion, which is more than its parent company in South Korea. And it became the most successful IPO since 2021. The company's chairman said it was a defining moment in their history. Listen in.
Today's IPO is not just a financial milestone. It's a defining moment in our journey to become truly national company in India. Through our products and technologies, we will continue to bring convenience, innovation, and joy to everyday life, strengthening our position as the country's most trusted home appliance brand.
That message shows what this IPO really means. It's not just a big stock market debut, it's a sign of how global companies now see India. For years, India was mainly a consumer market. Today, it is a center of capital. It's a place where companies don't just sell products, but also raise billions to build their future. Again, the numbers prove it. The scale of demand is huge, the speed of subscription is rapid, and the size of those deals is proof that investors trust India's growth story. But what explains this trend? Well, three things. One, the growing domestic investors. Millions of Indians now invest in the stock market. Some buy shares directly, others invest through mutual funds. Domestic investors have put over $63 billion into the market this year. This keeps money moving into IPOs even when foreign investors pull back. The second reason is India's economic growth. India is the fastest or one of the fastest growing major economies in the world. Strong domestic demand is driving that growth. And a young workforce is fueling it further. Companies need money to expand here. They need funds to build factories. They need capital to create jobs, and they need investment to scale operations. Investors want to be part of that story. Then we have strong profits and tax cuts. They're also boosting confidence. The third reason is the rising policy support. Regulators have made it easier for big companies to go public in India. Even the Reserve Bank of India, RBI, India Central Bank, has relaxed rules for IPO investors. So all of this has created the perfect environment for new listings. And the results are clear. India is now the fourth busiest IPO market in the world. It could even surpass last year's record of $21 billion, and the pipeline is still full. Pine Labs, ICICI Prudential AMC, Lenskart and PhonePe, these companies are the next in line for a debut. So LG's IPO is not just a story of one company's success. It is a story of Indian markets, of how far they've come and how they're being powered by a fast-growing economy. The US military has fought many wars, in the trenches of World War II, in the wastelands of Iraq and Afghanistan, and in the skies over West Asia. Now the US military leadership is fighting a new war against journalists. The Pentagon has updated its media rules. The Pentagon is their defense ministry, or war ministry as they now call it. They've introduced new rules, and these rules were announced by US Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. The rules require journalists to sign a pledge. They must promise to never publish unauthorized information. Even unclassified, unauthorized information, they should not publish it. Only then will the journalists get credentials. Only then will they get access. Basically, the Pentagon will tell you what to publish. So no leaks, no source-based information, no investigation. The media can only report what the Pentagon tells them to report, what it authorizes. And you can't ignore the irony here, because Pete Hegseth himself was in the news media. He hosted a talk show on Fox News. But now he's cracking down on his colleagues. They must sign his pledge by today. If not, they will have to surrender their press credentials, meaning they will lose access to the Pentagon. But news outlets are pushing back. The Washington Post has refused to accept the new rules. So has the New York Times, CNN, The Atlantic, The Guardian, Reuters, The Associated Press, NPR. Most big outlets have refused to sign it. Trump's team may not care about these outlets. They already call them fake news. But here's the worrying part. Even right-wing outlets have refused to sign, like the Washington Times and Newsmax. These outlets are known to back Trump consistently. Yet they're not signing the pledge. And the Pentagon is not backing down. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth is mocking the journalists. Here's what he said, and I'm quoting. Here's the department's memo for dummies. Press no longer roams free. Press must wear visible badge. Credentialed press no longer permitted to solicit criminal acts. These rules are also part of the new guidelines. But Hegseth did not mention the most controversial one, the one regarding the pledge. And this move is not an isolated one. It is part of Donald Trump's bid to reshape the Pentagon, starting with nomenclature. Like I said, the Pentagon is not the Department of Defense anymore. It is the Department of War. Similarly, Pete Hegseth is not the Secretary of Defense. He is the Secretary of War. Trump says he wants to inculcate a warrior culture in the US military. No more woke ideas or diversity. He wants to focus on lethality. And these media rules should be seen in that context as a bid to control the military's narrative. Remember, the White House had a really bad experience in the month of March. Security officials accidentally added a journalist to their Signal chat. Signal, as you would know, is a messenger app. Think of it as a secure, super encrypted WhatsApp. In March, officials added a journalist to one such Signal chat, and they ended up sharing war plans with him on that chat. Plans on launching military strikes at the Houthis of Yemen. And when the news came out, it was quite embarrassing, of course, and Pete Hegseth himself came under a lot of fire. Maybe this is why he's ensuring that there is never a repeat. Having said that, there is a strategic argument too. The Pentagon is famous for its leaks. If you follow US outlets, you will know this. Some reports often reveal highly sensitive information that could be weaponized. So Trump supporters say the new rules are necessary. They say it will plug the Pentagon's leaks. I'm afraid that won't cut it. If you fear leaks, look within your organization. Do not blame journalists if your officials can't hold information. Plus, the stakeholders are unhappy, all of them. The Pentagon press corps has condemned the rules. Former Pentagon officials have criticized them. Anonymous serving officials have questioned them. So who exactly are these rules serving? Also, where are the guardians of a free press? Trump has launched repeated attacks on the media. He has sued multiple outlets. He has weaponized regulators. He has called for taking off late-night hosts off air. Yet rights bodies are silent. I guess press freedom only matters outside the first world. Or maybe such problems are unimaginable in the US. Either way, this should be a huge red flag because the United States military is the most powerful in the world. It is deployed across dozens of countries. It also has a history of committing abuses and crimes. If anything, the US military needs more media scrutiny, not less.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
As the countdown to Bihar's first phase of polling intensifies, the NDA has already locked in its seat-sharing formula, with BJP and JDU bagging 101 seats each and Chirag Paswan settling for 29. But on the other side of the aisle, the Mahagathbandhan is still in deep negotiations. Tejashwi Yadav, after attending a court hearing in Delhi, has rushed back to Patna. He told reporters that seat-sharing announcement will come in the next 2 to 3 days. Sources say Congress is holding out for more seats, having rejected RJD's offer of 55. With just 72 hours left before nominations close, pressure is mounting on the alliance to present a united front. In the meanwhile, Tej Pratap Yadav has announced that he will contest the upcoming polls from Mahua constituency in Vaishali district. And in an internal Congress meeting held yesterday, state leaders also expressed dissatisfaction with being limited to 55 seats in Bihar Mahagathbandhan. According to Congress sources, seat-sharing talks within Mahagathbandhan have hit a roadblock. The Congress adamant on contesting on 60 at least. RJD, however, wants to reduce Congress's share to accommodate smaller alliance partners. On the other hand, NDA seat-sharing deal, remember, has been done, and we've heard all of that all of yesterday, how leaders have been discussing allocation of individual seats now. A lot of reactions coming in on this top focus story from Bihar. First up, let's play them out.
महागठबंधन में सिर फुटवल चल रहा है और महागठबंधन जो है एक दूसरे का इलाज दिल्ली में जाकर के करवा रहे हैं। मुकेश सहनी जी ने कहा कि अभी इलाज शुरू हुआ है महागठबंधन का, सभी डॉक्टर दिल्ली में मौजूद हैं उनके, और वो लोग अपना एक दूसरे से इलाज करवा रहे हैं।
एक चीज़ है कि बिहारियों के सम्मान का, उत्थान का संकल्प ये लोकतंत्र का महापर्व में बिहार की जनता, माँ भारती की जनता पूरी तरह से निभाएगी। अब बिहारी गाली नहीं बनेगा, बिहारी स्वाभिमान और समृद्धि का प्रतीक बनेगा।
लिस्ट सीट शेयरिंग के फाइनलाइजेशन के बाद, गठबंधन के बाद लिस्ट भी आई। हमारा प्रयास ये है कि बिहार की जनता को एक अच्छी सरकार बना के दें, तो गठबंधन का भी नुकसान नहीं होना चाहिए और बिहार का फायदा होना चाहिए, हमारा प्रयास।
बिहार की जनता को एक बार पुनः स्वच्छ प्रशासन के लिए नीतीश कुमार को वोट देना चाहिए। जेडीयू और भाजपा जुड़वा भाई की तरह से, उनमें पदों को लेकर के किसी प्रकार का कोई विवाद नहीं है। हमारे जन कल्याण के साझे कार्यक्रम।
Sharon Elizabeth joins us live with more details. Sharon, there's a lot of confusion, it seems, in the Mahagathbandhan, and the finalization of seat-sharing talks most certainly has been pushed by another day or two, is what we're learning. But tell us a little bit about what the strategy or at the moment seems to be that of the Congress party, especially because they're looking at gaining more seats as opposed to RJD's opinion and point of view right now.
Well, Crispin, at the moment, the strategy, of course, is to seal the deal as far as the seat sharing is concerned, because the time is of essence here. Time is running out. Nomination dates are nearby. And even now, the seat sharing has not been done. When we talk about the NDA camp, the seat sharing, the seats have been divided among their alliances and BJP and the JDU. But in Mahagathbandhan, there is still negotiation that is going on. And that has shown that how, ill-prepared the Congress party and the Mahagathbandhan at this point is, and they need to, of course, seal the deal as fast as possible. Now, overall, when we talk about Congress party, the Congress party last time has, in fact, contested from 70 seats. Yeah. And this time, they are looking at about 60 seats because the RJD has been saying last time they were not able to do much with the seats that they had got. Out of the 70 seats, they were only able to get about 90 to 20 seats. And it was a very bad performance on the part of the Congress party. On the other hand, the other alliance member, CPIML, their scorecard was actually beyond expectation. They, in fact, contested on 19 seats and they won 12 seats. So this time, they're asking for more seats. Yeah. And Congress, on the other hand, is very adamant that they will contest on 60 seats. So right now, of course, there are negotiations that is going on. But one of the interesting thing to note here is that Tejasvi Yadav was very much present in the national capital. But even then, Rahul Gandhi or a meeting with Kharge was not scheduled because the negotiations are underway and Rahul Gandhi believes that the state leaders know better and the negotiation should happen between them. And once the negotiation is final, then Rahul Gandhi and Mallikarjun Kharge will be meeting Tejasvi Yadav. So Congress is confident that probably by today or by latest tomorrow, they will be able to seal the deal. But of course, things are not really working out as being planned by Mahagathbandhan at this point. Okay, Sharon, how much of that has changed ever since the Rouse Avenue court made all those important observations, framed charges against the Lalu family? Has that emboldened the Congress now to look at those additional 5 seats that it's been eyeing? Because the RJD, as per sources we're learning, is looking at not giving more than 55 seats to the Congress. See, Crispin, the thing is that Congress also knows that it is going to be RJD that is going to, of course, bring in more seats. It is the bigger alliance member as far as Mahagathbandhan is concerned. Given the Lalu case or not, even if the Congress party is going to raise the Lalu Prasad Yadav issue, every time the RJD says that last time Congress party, in fact, went on to contest in 70 seats and they really managed only about 19 to 20. The scorecard was really bad. That is something that is being pointed out time and again by the RJD, that they need to give more seats to other alliance members like the VIP and the CPIML, and that is where the
Now it's time for Vantage shots, images that tell the story. SpaceX launches another Starship rocket to test its reusable design. Dinosaur footprints from over 166 million years ago found in a British quarry. And a flying car takes to the skies over Dubai. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1964, Martin Luther King Jr. won the Nobel Peace Prize. He was awarded for his nonviolent resistance to racial prejudice in America. At that time, the 35-year-old civil rights activist was the youngest person ever to receive the award. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.